Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud to present to you our next very distinguished guest, who for quite a while now has been an excellent source for information on artists, arts around the world of all sorts, categories and variations. I'm very proud to present to you Regine Debatty.
Hi everyone, so yes, I'm Regine Debatty and I'm a blogger. Most of the time I write on a blog called We Make Money Not Art about what artists are doing with technology. So I will explain it a bit later. And I just start with a warning, is that if you had a look at the program online and at my extract, I will not talk about that. I changed my plan at the last minute. I was supposed to talk about how artists are dealing with surveillance society and CCTV camera, and then I thought, no, it will be too much like what I did last year with UC, and I don't want to repeat it, even if I give another context, even if I give other examples. And then UC is not there, so it will be less cool anyway. It's in Finland, skiing or whatever. So I changed the topic, and so 2 days ago I thought, yeah, what I'm going to talk about, I don't know, and I had these very not smart ideas, which was, why not follow the theme of the conference, which is about trust. Like Tim said yesterday, our society is in need of trust, but should we trust anyone? So the kind of project I'm going to explore now, project by artists who explore this notion of trust, or more the contrary of it. So I will show example of people, or kind of people, or societies, organizations which we shouldn't trust, and which are not the one you would expect when you think about not trusting someone or something. But first of all, I'm not sure how many of you really are familiar with new media art, so I thought I would start very quickly and by a very dirty and super fast introduction to new media art as I see it myself. Something more about me is that I have no background in art nor technology. I started blogging in March 2004. I just discovered that there was these people doing things they were not supposed to do with technology. I mean, these artists, they have something in common with hackers, is that they get the user manual of technology and they're just not happy with it. They just immediately see the limits and want to do other things and go beyond the kind of stuff they're supposed to do. So I started this blog, and it was kind of documenting what my finding, because I knew nothing, but I was interested. I had loads of time at the office because I had a very boring job. And I'm still 2.5 years after that. I'm still not an expert. I still have lots of things to learn. But I learned a few things, such as these new media artists, these people playing around with technology. They are not just fun or poetical. They also, I think, have a role very important and crucial in society. And I'm going to show 3 kind of roles they could play. And then I will talk about these trust projects. But first, my very quick introduction. With a project that I guess some of you know, because it's been developed by a company of artists and interaction designers based in Berlin. It's called TerraVision. It's an installation which was developed around in '94. And so you're in front of a globe, and you can navigate the globe and go from one part of the Earth to the other. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can overlay some other information like weather or pollution. You can zoom and trigger, like on Potsdamer Platz, and trigger a video shooted decades ago. And it's I mean, it can be very precise and give good images, but it depends on the resolution of the satellite images it gets. So sometimes you can see people on the images, and sometimes just buildings. And with this description, it's just Google Earth, except that it was 10 years before Google Earth. You couldn't have it at home on your computer, and I think that the design of TerraVision was way cooler. But so I'd say that this is the first role of artists, is that they are not forecasters, they're not writing science fiction, but by paying attention to some of their work, you can really get a glimpse of what tomorrow could bring. If I have to be fair, I'd say that there are other projects that really give an idea of what Google Earth would bring. And I'd just like to mention this other one, which is from the 80s, and it's by a guy called Michael Neymark, and he made this Golden Gate flyover, and this time it's just limited, it's just around the Bay Area. And it's not satellite images, there was images he took with a camera from a helicopter. But it was the same, you could navigate and zoom across the surface. Another very quick example that I'll take this time from the 60s. They were not really new media artists, they were just a group of avant-garde architects, and they were called Archigram. They were active in the 60s and early 70s, and they were more like dominating the avant-garde of architecture. They didn't really build anything. I think they built a playground, an exhibition, and a swimming pool for Rod Stewart, if you know that singer. And what they imagined was the walking city. So Ron Heron, which was one of the Archigram guys, imagined this city which would mean people would hop into the walking city and go from one place to the other. If they are bored with the place, they would just go to another. If they have exhausted the energy resources, they would just step into the walking city and go to another location. It's more complicated than that, but that was one of the features of the walking city. And now, I think it's really, really similar to this project, which dates back to last year. There was a competition in the UK asking studios of architects to come up with ideas for the new Antarctic surveys, so where the researcher would research about the environment in Antarctic, and the winning project is this one. So it's a kind of city. It's where there's the laboratory, there's the place where the researchers are sleeping, eating, relaxing, and doing basically everything. And it's in the Antarctic, and it would sit on a thick level of ice. And it doesn't exactly walk. It has long legs, and it's built on ski, the kind of, I don't know if you see it very well, it's not feet, but kind of ski. So what happens when the researcher, the scientist detects that the level of ice that the station is standing on is getting too thin or too fragile, or they risk to drift into the ocean on an iceberg, they are just pushed, they get a bulldozer and they're just pushed to another location. And I'm sure, I mean, Archigram have influenced many architects over the decades. Think about the biggest architects, and most of them will say, yeah, we've been influenced by Archigram. And I think this is a clear indication, a clear example. So that was the first role, I'd say, of artists, which to give an idea of what tomorrow could bring. Another role they play, which is very important to me, is that they just make technology funnier and more engaging. And for someone like me, I don't have a background in technology, and I'm still quite intimidated by technology. And the fact that they give it more appeal and bring it to me, and sometimes bring a smile on the face of people who are kind of afraid of technology, I think is very important. So just one example, it's called Net Cuckoo. It's a project from 2001, and these two Spanish designers, they made this, it's a cuckoo clock, except that it doesn't give the time. Every 15 minutes, it just displays the headlines from newspaper. And there's something else. There's a switch, and if you're someone who has from the sympathies from the political party from the left, you would just put the switch to the left, and you would have the headlines from newspaper from the left wing, and the contrary if you have sympathies for political parties from the right. He made 8 examples. They made 8 objects like this. Which really comment on, one, you could take it on 2 ways. One, on the fact that many people are still, they would still really be interested in surfing the net and getting news about anything that, about their obsession. It can be star gossips, it can be the headlines, it can be porn or anything. But they're just still afraid of internet, of computer, and just very easy to handle. They're just easy to handle objects. They are not threatening. They are objects they would find in your kitchen. And this other one is just a book where you can see webcam from the designer call them vivacious ladies. But the third role of artists, which is probably the most crucial, is that they have a critical eye on society and on society in general, and on the way we use and we see technology. So I will give several examples, and that's when I'm going to talk about trust. So the first project I'm going to talk about is when these new media artists are having a critical eye on the contemporary art itself. With this artist called Darko Maver. Darko Maver was a Serbian sculptor, and he became famous in 1998. He was walking around ex-Yugoslavia and leaving sculpture in hotel rooms, in empty houses, toilets, along the road. This is the kind of sculpture he was doing, like it were dummies which imitated dead bodies or fetus, or really bodies having had to suffer the atrocities of the Balkan Wars. Very quickly he got arrested because, yeah, it wasn't very patriotic what he was showing, so all his dummies have been destroyed. And the art community in the rest of Europe, especially in Italy, got very interested, and they started campaigning and talking about the freedom of art and trying to organize exhibition and wrote about it in magazine, and critics started to try to interpret the work of the artist. And really, the top of it was in 1999. A documentary about his work was shown at the Venice Biennale. So I don't know if everybody knows the Venice Biennale. It's really the top in the art world. It's traditional. It's one of the oldest art biennale and of contemporary art. So the problem is that it was a fake. The artist never existed at all. So just after the art biennale, the artist who totally created the personality of this artist and his work. I'm not going to pronounce their name. It's this vortex of 0 and 1 over there. And they just said, yeah, it doesn't exist. There's no dummies at all. We just found the images. They are real images of the atrocities of war. They were on the internet. And what we want to say is just that we want to show the mechanism of contemporary art. And it's like, you know, they're not the first who do that. I mean, Duchamp did it with his urinoir, and they just want to take the example of Marcel Duchamp and go to the extreme. There's no urinoir, there's no object at all. There's something immaterial. They're just images on the internet. And in 1 year, they went from 0, from something inexistent, to the Venice Biennale. So that's the first example, and it's getting even more interesting when these artists, this is another kind of artist, try to make us reflect about society in general. This first example is from a Dutch woman. She's a photographer, a performer. She's called Nicoline van der Kemp. And during several years, she really explored the world of public and private security guard and police forces, and very documented the way they dress, etc. And she made several performances in several cities, and one was in Istanbul. She just found 2 actors. She gave them fake identities and a uniform with logos, stuff like that she bought on a shopping mall, and say, yeah, just go in the street and do nothing. And very quickly, the people, these 2 guys, they kind of met other guards or people from the police. They were shaking hands, and they were like, suddenly they became colleagues. People were asking direction, asking them to help because someone has stolen a purse, or they even maneuver a boat for tourists. They made tons of things during just 12 years, and in 12 hours. And in 12 hours, they just overtook a number of different roles, and everybody accepted them, like people having a kind of power and authority, and nobody questioned it. And like they had no official logo. It was just fake logos they were wearing. So I'm not sure you can read, but the artist made a video, and so the actor explained what happened to them. And this one said, somebody said, "I know judo and karate. Can I get a job with your company?" The other one, the guard saying, "I don't think that they cared very much who we were. It was funny, but also quite sad." So that was in Istanbul, and you could think, yeah, it's far away, but they did, the artists did the same kind of performance in other cities, in Glasgow, in Rotterdam, in Amsterdam, and this is in London, and exactly the same. The guy is an actor, he just got this very bright vest and a clip-on tie, and yeah, stuff like that, and immediately he was befriended by other guards and given responsibilities. And the problem is that there's no very clear jurisdiction, and these guards, many of them don't have any more power or more rights than you and me. So, and I'm not going to talk about this one. Because it's long. Okay, sorry. So that was an example. I started with the artists criticizing the art and the way our society accepts and trusts anyone without asking any question. And the last part will be about how artists are exploring technology, the way we use it, and the danger we can encounter. And I will show several strategies they propose and several projects they have imagined for us to regain some kind of power over it. So the first project is a series of performances by someone called Michel Terran. And for several years, she goes from city to city, and she discovered, she bought like one of these devices, and it's very common, it's quite cheap, and it's a frequency scanner. And with it, she just goes in the street. In this performance, she was dressed as a Trump, and she had TV monitor in it, and she can really detect and grab the images of private security cameras. So we're not talking about institutional security camera, but about public one, like the reception of a hotel or money teller, but also private one, from places that people want to keep private and secret and to themselves, like a baby in a crib. So she also detected images of unmade beds, stuff like that she immediately broadcast on her TV monitors, so that everyone in the streets can see them. It's still her again in another location, and this time the monitors are embedded in a suitcase. So everywhere she goes, she kind of adapts a bit the performance. And it's just, it's not new that there's really an increase in surveillance, but it's, what she's pointing at is that it's the extent of it. Like everybody now is a kind of mini broadcaster and have images they think they could keep private, but the waves are going through the walls, and you can get the images of private places and suddenly brought it on the outside. When I'm talking about artists dealing with technology, I'm not just talking about the technology, the first kind of technology you think about, which would be computers and mobile phones, but other kinds of so-called emerging technologies like nanotechnology or biotechnology. This example, I don't know if it's quite famous if you're into bioart, etc. It's by a group called Tissue Culture and Art Project, and they they are investigating the concept of semi-living creature and doing things, food and clothes, without hurting any animals, without killing anyone. So what they did, they were just growing in a kind of bioreactor, a tiny jacket, which is kind of living. What they did, they took cells from mouse and cells, bone cell from human. They put them together. They grow them on polymer and inside a bioreactor in the shape of a jacket. So there's a better view. And they showed that around, and it seems that people are more disturbed by the fact that maybe one day they could wear something like that. I mean, it's very small. It could only fit a mouse. It's small like that. But some people would rather wear the skin of a dead animal and not be concerned about what could have happened to that animal, rather than wear this. So on the one hand is a critique of the way we handle animals, but on the other hand, it's like this semi-living human being. How should we deal with them? Are they living? Yes, they are living, but they don't have a brain, so how could we discard them? So they're really raising a series of questions, and I think what they do, especially in biotechnology, is very important, because when you think about biotechnology and you read the newspaper, and there are some kind of quite spectacular stories about what they're doing in the laboratories, and I like to read them, but it's so far away from my everyday life. And when you have an example like that, suddenly biotechnology becomes tangible, something that you could identify with, that could come in your life, in your wardrobe in this case, and hopefully the people can start thinking about it and having discussion, and maybe if they have discussion and if they figure that the kind of future that they can envision is not the one they expect or the one they want, maybe they could change things and contact people in laboratories or in the government, because technology is something that happens to us. I mean, technologies are developed in laboratories, and when they come into our life, it's too late. They are there, and we cannot change anything. So I will just read this, because he said it much better than I could. One of the guys who developed one of these projects said, artists should engage in biological-related technologies as a medium of suggestion for alternative and contestable futures, and even more importantly, to inform and try to generate a public dialogue regarding the possibilities of these technologies. The artist should adopt a visionary model by preparing society for the greater challenges ahead in the fields of biotechnology. I just give a last example of this group several years ago. It was still the concept of having animals not suffering. They had an experiment which was called disembodied cuisine. So they were in France, which is the paradise, the motherland of nouvelle cuisine. And what they did was perform a biopsy on a frog and take cell from the frog and just grow in the lab in front of everyone. They could visit it and grow it into steaks, very small steaks. Like you can see the kind of steaks they get, and feed it to the people and show in the laboratory the frog still living. And this time it's like, yeah, we are eating more and more modified food, and this time they put it in front of everybody. Like during several days, people could come. The laboratories was public, and people could see the kind of modification the food they might eat was undergoing. And yeah, it's also once again about cruelty, about animals, and about something else more important that I forgot. That's very bad. Yeah, maybe we'll come back. Oh, that's bad. A last example. I mean, these two projects I showed by Tissue Culture and Art Project. These are, I would say, very clever and quite lucky guys, because they managed to collaborate with a research center in Australia. But when you deal with biotechnology, it's something expensive. It's something which is quite dangerous. I mean, some artists have been accused of bioterrorism and went to prison because they were playing with biotechnology. And yeah, and very often it's still in the laboratory. So when you cannot collaborate with researchers and establish laboratories, what you can do is just create a totally fake project with videos and kind of imagine the future with these biotechnologies. And there's someone, I mean, it's a couple I like really, really a lot. They're called Anthony Dunn and Fiona Raby, and they're teaching at the Royal College of Art in London, and that's what they're doing now. They're really trying to have students engage with biotechnology and nanotechnology. Even nanotechnology is still a bit difficult. And one of the projects, one of the students came up with is Memento Mori in vitro. So the inspiration is that during the Victorian era, people will wear some hair into a pendant, how do you call it, a necklace? A locket, inside a locket. And so he get this inspiration, and he thought, yeah, if that, during the Victorian era, a person who's dead or is very far away is kept kind of alive into the locket through the air. So let's imagine what it could be in the era of biotechnology. So I imagine that the person who's remote or who's dead, some hair from that person would be taken and put in a growing component. So you would live with that person, or that person was living far away, and every morning when you have breakfast, you would just feed this hair. You will have to wash them very regularly because they are still growing and still living. And when you're watching TV, you can stroke them. That's like what you do with a lover. You know, he has his head on your knees, and you just stroke her hair. So I think it's absolutely disgusting. But some people think it's quite nice, and it's a kind of real. I mean, this student invented the notion of romanticism in the age of biotechnology, and maybe within 10 years I will not think that it's disgusting. I will be, I don't know. But anyway, the most important thing is that when I first heard about this project, I was quite horrified, and I kept this project in my head during weeks, and I started thinking about it, and yeah, some people might be very pleased to be able to do that. So it really, as I said, it really made me think about technology, that just technology is not a series of applications, it's also a series of implications, of consequences. They can be social, they can be ethical, or they can be cultural, or they can even be political. How many examples do I have? I think it gets more interesting when these artists are not just pointing to the problems and saying, hey, wake up, there's something there, you have to be aware of it. But when it gets even more interesting when they give us some tools to change something. The first example is called Tracking the Torture Taxi. Maybe you know that there are some people who are suspected of terrorism, and so the CIA, the US CIA, kidnap them, put them on a plane, and fly them to other countries everywhere in the world. It's called extraordinary rendition. Like there's no proof that these persons are terrorists. There are questions they're sent in camps. There are questions. Probably they are also tortured. And for several years, there are a group of amateurs who are they call themselves plane spotters, and they just document what happens. Most of these planes, I mean, the CIA has to cover this activity, so most of these planes are commercial planes, and they belong to fake companies that do not exist, or individuals, I mean, just names, but there's no one existing behind them. So they're operated by the CIA, but they are commercial. And so what these plane spotters are doing, they're just trying to take pictures from far away and document exactly when the plane takes off, when it arrives and where, etc. And Trevor Paglen, got interested in these stories very, very quickly. So he defines himself as an expert in military secrecy. And with a journalist, a more investigative journalist, he started raising awareness about it. I mean, it's something that it exists. I mean, even Bush in early September, declared, yeah, we do that, but we still don't know to what extent it exists. All we know is that it's the biggest operation since the end of the Cold Era, and it's getting bigger and bigger, really out of proportion. So he wrote a book, he makes exhibition. Thank God, not just in art galleries, but also in universities and other public places. And he documents his funding. For example, he has contacts inside the army who send them logos that these officials who are working on secret missions have to wear. I mean, people in the army, they have to wear logos that identify them, that identify their place in the hierarchy and their achievement. But if you're working on a secret mission, how do you represent something that shouldn't be represented? So Trevor just is collecting several of these logos, and they're quite weird. They look like something coming from cults or esoteric organization or stuff like that. But one of his projects he's working on, which I think I find it absolutely fantastic. It's called Terminal Air. So I thought about this plane spotter who are documenting the movement of these planes, and they put it online, but on several websites. And each time they find a document they could add, they put them on their website. And what Terminal Air is doing is just putting together and gathering all these documents. So you have a single interface, and you can follow in real time what's happening. And even more than that, if you're a registered user, you can get an SMS to know when a plane is coming in your city or in your country or in your area. So you can grab your digital phone camera or your mobile phone with a camera and go and take pictures and post them. And it's a tool to inform people, and he's working on similar installation that he's going to show around. I don't know how much time I still have. Okay. This one is more about media, and it's another example of artists trying to empower us. And in this case, with this tactical ice cream unit, it's a comment on the fact that many sources of information or the way we communicate, there's some financial process. We have to pay somewhere or another, and we don't really have the control about what's being broadcasted or anything. So this big truck is divided in two. So there's the mother truck, and inside there's a small cart for ice cream, and inside the big cart there's everything for activists, like there's GPS technology, satellite, surveillance camera, and they just arrive in a city and they meet activists, local activists, and they say, yeah, we are here, and just use our facilities. They have anything, balloons, masks. So if people want to document corporate dumping, or police behaving badly, or if they want to organize a protest, or monitor any other thing, these guys are there, and they provide people with the tools they really need to have an effective protest, for example. And yeah, there's the tactical ice cream cart, which is more mobile and distributes real ice cream for free, but also document to make people think and inform them about potential activist events in the area. This one is, I'm too tired for that one. Okay. I think this is the last example. It's still another example of trying to get some control and not having the information mediated by anyone and by anyone else or by government or anything. And this one is about environment. It's very difficult to know exactly the level of pollution of a city. No, it's easy to get it, but how do you know it's really accurate and correct, and how precise can it be? So Miriam Milicevic imagined what she called neighborhood satellites, and it's a kind of game. She did it what she was studying with, and she built it with crap, things that was dumped in her school. And so you have a game, a little display, and a device, and all the technology is hidden in the backpack. And what you do, there are three modes of checking which kind of environment or pollutant there's in your neighborhood. You can play with this. This is the little satellite, and with it you can. It detects. The level of light, how much phone signal there is, and several data about the existing pollution. And you can see it on the display. This is your satellite, this little bird, and these are the kind of pollution around you, pollution or places of green or non-polluted area. So the idea is that you can either go around in your neighborhood and exactly see how polluted it is. You can play also with it. So in fact, it's also a game. So your little satellite can be attacked by pollutant, and so it's a game. And there's something hidden behind it. What happens when you become a good player, you want to pass to the next level, and the next level will be going to very polluted area. But do you want to do that to your health? So it just kind of triggers a series of questions in the mind of the gamer. And the most interesting mode to play it is playing with the community, with other people in your neighborhood, and just sharing information and mapping exactly in your neighborhood where is the pollution. And use it as a tool. It can be used like several people in a crossing playing silently, and it would be a kind of silent protest against the pollution, but it could also mean some very basic thing, like you want to rent or you want to buy a house, and you could bargain the price of the house. I mean, it would be a new kind of characteristic, and you say, oh, I'm sorry, this house is too polluted, so I can say to anyone, so please decrease the price. So that's just an example of what one can do with this kind of project. I will come to that one after that. I'm not sure that my talk really helped you if you want to answer the question, who can we trust? But what I wanted to show is that there's one thing we can be sure of, is that the artists will just try to provide a tool or point your attention to the kind of people you shouldn't trust, even if they look trustworthy, and sometimes even provide you the tool to regain some power of a series of issues. And before finishing, I don't know if everybody has seen this project. It's downstairs, and I'm not sure it's well explained what it is exactly. So I thought I would just end by explaining very quickly what it is. It's a project which has been developed. Is Marcus Kirson here? Do you want to come and explain your project? I should have. I was thinking about asking you and finding you, and then I forgot. Do you mind? Hang on. I also have the website, so you can. I wanted to show the video you put online, so I will just, while you talk, if that's okay. Otherwise, if you want other images, while you talk, I will just show the video. want this? I don't know. I'm sorry, I should have asked you before.
Okay, I don't know if you hear me. Should work. Ah, perfect. Okay. So this perfect was developed at the University of the Arts in Berlin in the digital media class of Professor Sauter. And it's a live webcam installation. So now you see the installation when it's not, the projector is not online. And you have 4 models which are from the left to right in Denmark, and in Amsterdam a laundromat, and the next one is my own inner courtyard in Berlin, and the last one is in Vermont. And these models were printed on a 3D plotter from rapid prototyping. So now you see the installation when it's on. So here you see the first installation in Denmark. You have, it's a found footage installation with 4 live webcam streams, which are transformed to live miniatures. So here you see street crossing anywhere in Denmark. Next one is the laundromat in Amsterdam. So these models were printed on a rapid prototyping system, which hardens sand slice by slice to create these models. And the third one is my own inner courtyard. It's the next one. Okay, it's the left one. And it works with kind of a split screen, so there's one projector in the middle, and you have those models in a half circle around you, and the projector goes to the front, and there's 4 mirrors which divide the light, and then the light comes back to the 4 models, so you only need 1 mirror, which is kind of effective because projectors are very expensive. So it is the last model, and this model is very nice because you have a timeline in the top of the picture, and you see that it's really live because the time is always running when you look at it. And on Friday, that's cool because on Friday there's a market, so you can have a look at the market on the model. And when it's getting dark, it's getting like this. So you see the lights in the windows. Okay, it's about 3 or 4 minutes transition from here to there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. One last thing, and I'm not very good at putting my screen like I should, is that while I was preparing this talk, you see Angus Leva, whom some of you know, and Katharina Becker, and Marlene Keimerer, I hope I pronounced her name well. We worked on a blog. The address is mediaart.ccc.de, and tonight I will put online all the address of the project I talk about. And if you go on the website, there are several projects I didn't talk about. They were more about surveillance, and the one on the top is the project of Marcus. So it was a kind of having an online exhibition which was targeted to this Congress. And that's it. So if you have questions or comments.
Okay, if there are no questions, then thank you for attending the talk, and thank you very much, Regine Debatty.